Hi, this is Dr. Frank Chopatini with the Church of Rational Truth. Just wanted to start off with going over the results for the funding for last month, or the passive income. It is going to be going towards the church funding, so it's going to be another $19 and I believe 94 cents. It's going towards that. That'll add towards the fund. That'll continue to gain interest. And then when that gets enough, we'll actually start looking at actual places to have a physical church. It's going to be slow. It's going to be steady. It might take a long time, but hopefully we keep raising funds to get there. Today's lecture, we're going to talk a little bit about, I think the overarching theme is why go to school or why pay attention in school. I think that's a more relatable theme to kind of get us into a lot of the base principles of the church and seeking knowledge, because we are the Church of Rational Truth. We care about being rational, seeking truth. Those are very big things. Those are very big ideals we have. But I want to talk about why. Why do we bother doing that? Why is that so important? A question I get asked all the time when I see parents with kids who are not doing well in school or not motivated is we got to tease out the why of it. We get a lot of it blamed on, oh, it's ADHD, oh, it's anxiety and they're not doing well, oh, they just don't understand it. But one thing that I see that is somewhat common, I can't say it's the biggest cause, but it's somewhat common, is the lack of motivation. A lot of times it hits around high school, sometimes even in middle school, where there's a certain percentage of kids who are just, why are we even doing this? What's the point of going to school? Why am I learning these things? Why am I wasting all my time doing things that seem really pointless? And I can see why they see that. If you're doing a whole bunch of just what looks like busy work or looks like stuff that's completely unapplied, why are you wasting all your time doing these things, especially when every day you're not seeing people use and apply these things? So it's very understandable how someone would get that sentiment, and someone would not want to put in a whole lot of effort and work on something that doesn't seem like it's going to have any benefit for them. So this is kind of the why that we get through. And that is a hard answer, because a lot of things that are learned in school for people are not going to be ever used. I would say most people use a very small percentage of what they gain in school. Most daily mathematics don't get much past basic arithmetic. I mean, sometimes you have to use algebra, but not many people are using calculus on an everyday basis. Not many people are using trigonometry on an everyday basis. But the problem is sometimes those things are used. People with the normal education or with the general education, it is liberal arts. They want you to get a little bit of a basis of everything so that you can go on to harder and harder sciences. So you have to hope that you give them that base so someone can actually continue. But for a very large percentage of people, that never is going to be used, or they'll only need it in very rare times or very, inopportune times. That, and if they're not using it regularly, a lot of that knowledge gets lost. So why do we think it's important as a church? Well, the whole point of knowledge is that you can actually theoretically use it to benefit you, and you should be using it to benefit you. That's why we as a church do it. We seek knowledge and truth because we hope that that knowledge and truth will bring us to less suffering, that will be able to lead us to greater advantages, to be able to fix things, to be able to improve our lives, to be able to improve the lives of others. And you need knowledge that's going to do that. If you don't have knowledge in those areas that is actually being able to be applied, that knowledge is not incredibly useful. It could theoretically be useful in other situations or for other people, but if you're gaining knowledge to not do anything with it, then kind of what is the point? You want to gain knowledge that is going to be useful, that is going to be applied. I think that helps kids a lot in schools if they actually have this is where I'm going, this is why I need this knowledge. So knowing, like, if they're going to college, the reason you're doing all that English and math work is the English and math work in college is based on all those. If they're not going to college, a lot of times they have this really difficult way of why am I learning this? But a lot of times you have to kind of cater to them so that they can see what the purpose is. And that is not always easy. Many different subjects are not easily applicable in everyday lives. But I would say for us, both as a church, as a species, we should be gaining knowledge for practical application first. Now, should you just do it for academic purposes? There's not a negative. I think learning any knowledge is necessarily good. Anything that brings you towards truth is good. And you also don't know when you are going to use that knowledge. You don't know if that knowledge is going to be the basis of further understanding. You don't know if that knowledge is going to all of a sudden become applicable in the future. and it's not a bad thing to have. So I would say for academic purposes, it is nice to do research, even if research does not appear useful at the time. But I would say there should be, more of a preference towards things we can actually use, things that are more important and applicable right now. So both academic study is useful, but I would say the important distinction between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is just gaining facts and figures. True wisdom is being able to use those in a way that's going to actually be helpful, because a library is not useful if you don't apply it towards something, or if you actually don't do anything with those great minds. It's still a waste. So if I have an encyclopedic knowledge, but I use that to make my Minecraft world slightly fancier, okay, yeah, I'm not really applying it towards much. Versus if I use that and I produce a new product, or I produce a new invention, or if I further scientific knowledge, I'm doing a lot more benefit with that encyclopedic knowledge. So really, we should be focusing on having useful knowledge, applying that knowledge, and then being able to use that to better ourselves. I would really think it would be better off for people when going through school is to be able to find what their life goals are first, and then be able to apply their learning towards furthering those life goals. Because a lot of times in high school, even in college, people don't really have things planned out. They don't have this is what I want to do in 10 years. This is what I want to do in 5 years. So for them, they don't know even what knowledge they're going to need to be able to apply it to better their lives. So if you don't even know what knowledge you need, all the knowledge kind of seems pointless, and you kind of get offset towards learning because it's not helping you towards that goal. I think it would be more useful if people more focused on where they would want to be or what they want to do, and then be able to tailor their knowledge to that, because the motivation factor becomes much more important. The things that they're going to learn are going to be much more useful in their everyday lives. So, for example, if I'm going to go into economics, I'm not necessarily going to want to spend tons and tons of time on biology. It'd be nice to have a little bit of a base of biology so you're not completely foreign in that. But if it's not going to be as useful, or if it's not going to drive you towards your career, a lot of times it is going to seem like a waste of time, and it's going to be demotivational, not motivational. So I would say structuring knowledge based more on what is going to be meaningful, what is going to be useful, not just in particular lives, but even in general. We should be trying to tailor our knowledge towards what's going to advance us as a race, or advance us as a species. So that is the brief overview. I would say any gaining of knowledge is good. I don't think any knowledge is necessarily in itself good or bad. I would argue more knowledge is dependent on what you do with it. So, for example, during the atomic age, when we were first identifying, radioactive specimens and being able to possibly do fusion and fission reactions, that is a very powerful piece of knowledge and information, and during that time, it was a big, what do you do with this, and what can you do with this? And if you go one route, you could go with the atomic bomb, the mass destructive route, where you take that knowledge and you can use it to get great power and hold it over people. Or you could do the opposite. You could use it to try to better mankind, create cheaper, not so renewable, but cheap energy, and actually try to use it for humanitarian purposes. So I would say it's not really necessarily the knowledge that is good or evil. I would say it's really how you apply that knowledge and how an individual takes that knowledge and uses it. And we hope that people gain knowledge so that they can use it, so advance all of humanity, not just themselves, not just for selfish purposes, but for hopefully purposes that are good and moral and beneficial. So that's our lecture for today. Tune in next week. We'll have another lecture on another topic. If there's any topic you all want to see or talk about specifically, let us know. And that's it for this week. So this is Dr. Frank Chopatini with the Church of Rational Truth signing off. I'll have a great rest of your weekend.